I remember the moment because it smelled like polish and champagne and quiet cruelty. My mother-in-law adjusted her diamond bracelet and didn't even lower her voice. She pointed at my son standing beside me in a too-tight suit, fingers curled into my coat. "Keep him in the car," she hissed. "He'll embarrass us." "Not me. Us." I nodded. That's what I'd learned to do around her: absorb the insult, swallow it whole, keep my spine invisible. My son looked up at me, confused but obedient. He trusted me. That mattered more than her gala, her company, her carefully curated illusion of power. I told him to wait 5 minutes. I already knew the night wouldn't end the way she planned. She hadn't always hated me. At first, she tolerated me with a tight smile, the way powerful people tolerate furniture. I was useful. I married her son. I stayed quiet. I didn't ask questions when numbers didn't add up, or when documents appeared on our dining table with sticky notes marked "sign here." But my son changed things. He was inconvenient, too curious, too visibly different. He didn't fit her aesthetic. And worse, he carried blood she thought she'd buried. I didn't know that yet. Not fully. I only knew that every time she looked at him, something flickered behind her eyes. Not disgust. Fear. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It never does. It seeps. A birth certificate with a delayed filing date. A sealed adoption record she'd once bragged about handling personally. A name that kept surfacing in old corporate filings, one she reacted to by leaving rooms abruptly. Then there was the trust. A retirement trust tied to her company. Voting rights deferred. Conditional. Locked behind a beneficiary clause that hadn't been updated in decades. And one name sat there, untouched. Preserved like a fossil. My son's. I stopped sleeping after that. Pain is loud. Planning is quiet. I hired a lawyer who didn't ask sentimental questions. Then a forensic accountant who smiled when he saw the numbers. Surveillance came next. Emails. Old voicemails. A DNA test she didn't know I'd legally obtained years ago, back when she'd insisted on medical clarity. Everything aligned with brutal elegance. She hadn't just hidden a child once. She'd built an empire on that lie. By the time the gala arrived, I was done being surprised. The ballroom glowed gold and glass. Executives laughed too loudly. The board hovered near her like obedient planets. She walked ahead of me, back straight, convinced she owned the room. She didn't notice when I slipped away. 5 minutes later, the CEO arrived. The room shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. He was older than the photograph suggested, but grief had preserved him in strange ways: sharp eyes, trembling hands. He didn't look at my mother-in-law. He walked straight past her. Straight to my son. I watched him kneel on a marble floor worth more than my first car. Watched his composure fracture as his hand hovered, unsure, reverent. "I finally found you," he whispered, tears cutting through decades of restraint. My mother-in-law turned the color of old paper. That was the first crack. She tried to recover. Of course she did. Laughed it off. Called it a misunderstanding. Reached for authority like it was oxygen. "You're outdated," she snapped at him when he stood. "We're done here." He looked at her then. Really looked. "Understood," he said quietly. That was the moment the retirement trust activated its voting rights. No announcement. No drama. Just a subtle notification pinging across board members' phones like a countdown. By Monday morning, they convened an emergency meeting. The question wasn't if she'd been removed. It was how she'd managed to fire the person who owned 76% of the shares. The confrontation was private. She demanded it that way. Dignity matters to people who've already lost everything else. She accused me of manipulation, of betrayal, of using my child as leverage. I didn't raise my voice. "I protected him," I said. "From you." She laughed, brittle and breaking. "You think you've won?" I thought of my son, asleep that night without flinching at raised voices. of the CEO reading him stories with shaking hands, of a future no longer dictated by her hunger. "Yes," I said. "I do." Security escorted her out an hour later. No applause. No closure she could weaponize. Just silence. Now, when I replay it in my head, I don't feel guilt. I feel precision. She taught me that power isn't loud. It's patient. It waits. It documents. It remembers. My son asks why his grandmother doesn't call anymore. I tell him some people confuse control with love. He nods. He understands more than she ever gave him credit for. As for me, I don't seek revenge anymore. I already executed it. Cleanly. Completely. And I slept better after that than I ever had before.